Hello, my name is Tim Hofflander, and this video is called You Can Stop Drug Addiction. I usually start these videos by talking about the massive amounts of destruction the addiction will do to you. In this case, I'm not going to do that because many drug users know all about the destruction, but they still can't stop. But I will give you the short version. Drugs will ruin you, destroy everything, and depending on your drug of choice, possibly or likely kill you. But instead of dwelling on that, I'm going to talk a little bit about why many people use drugs. Drug use is popular when people have something missing in their lives, or when they need to bury some pain or hurt. But when drug use becomes an addiction, it quickly becomes a dark hole where relationships, ethics, and morals become a much lower priority than they should have. For a few of you, drugs have not hurt your job standing or even your marriage. But you may be beginning to be aware that the drugs are taking over and that they are taking more than what you want them to take. For others, one of the main reasons you use drugs is because it is one of the few things that you feel like you have control over. It is your choice. It is your thing. It is who you are. But this is a cruel lie. Drugs are a force, and they are a driving force. There are some addictions that we think we are controlling, but these addictions are actually controlling us. Over time, drugs cause a loss of control of everything. So why do people do drugs after they have decided to quit? In most people, there is a dueling of personalities. Your mind tells you that you have to stop using drugs, but your pleasure-seeking flesh tells you that it will feel good. Key point number one, as long as you are ruled by the pleasure principle, you will always struggle with addiction. The pleasure seeker is selfish, immature, demanding, and short-sighted. In the long run, pleasure, which is from an addiction, always has a price to pay, which is much higher than what you want to pay. John Howard Prynne in his book Secret Keeping notes, quote, because temptations can come in so many forms, such as taking drugs, overeating, or surfing internet porn, these dueling tensions can be triggered continually. The average person's dual-mindedness results from listening to both opposing forces and acting according to one, then the other, then the first one again, then the second again, on and on in an endless tug-of-war, quote, unquote. Instead of being ruled by the pleasure principle, strive to be ruled by the moral principle. The moral principle is wise and rational, and it leads to real long-term joy instead of fake short-term pleasure, which leads to destruction. This principle believes that rules like that of your country or laws from the Bible are there to make your life better. When you follow this principle, you willingly give up your solution of choice, drugs, in exchange for another activity. The reason you make this choice is because you now believe that choosing an alternate activity will give you the best life over the next 7 days and longer. So, if you stay clean today and develop new activities, you may have a hard time today, but your week and your future will be better. Key point number two, always choose the wisdom of staying clean today so that you can have a good life all week. Don't give in to the short-term pleasure and destruction of drugs for one day, because they will ruin your week. I'll repeat that. Always choose the wisdom of staying clean today, so that you can have a good life all week. Don't give in to the short-term pleasure and destruction of drugs for one day, because they will ruin your week. Over time, staying clean is a lifestyle which is always better. Drugs are an escape for many people. One can escape from tension, anger, lack of success, pain, and many other things. We need to get rid of the escapist mindset, because our one day of escape always ruins more than one day, and it often ruins a whole week or longer. Along the same lines, many have the philosophy that if it feels good, do it. The problem is that the feeling good of a few hours usually causes the feeling bad of a few days. Instead of having this damaging mindset, embrace finding your purpose and living a clean life, which will lead to happiness over time. John Howard Prynne in his book Secret Keeping wrote about his past addictive behavior. He said, quote, drinking in private elevated both my joys and numbed my distress, similar with drugs. A dual benefit. Looking back, these fundamentals of addiction gradually became habits. Number one, resentment. I was reliving all my past hurts. Another 30 years would pass before I could face these resentments and get rid of their corrosive power. Second, isolation. My drinking intensified when I spent time alone. Solitary time was to become the riskiest situation for me to be in. That's very common. Thirdly, drama and crisis. Overreacting, partly learned from mom's open display of temper and partly due to my brain's overly sensitive conditioning, ruled me. Fourth, exaggerated emotions became my way of responding to life. Fifth, delusional thinking. My choice of a high-profile film career had already hatched a larger dream to make movies in Hollywood, and why stop there? To win an Oscar. Excessive boozing inflated these unrealistic expectations. He continues, unwittingly I fell into the trap of living for the outside in, accountable to no one, losing my bearings. I cared little about my character development, yet easily became a slave to the ambitious pride that had aroused me. Unquote. We can see that being overly sensitive to emotional pain or failure is often a trigger to addiction. So first of all, we need to be determined to be tougher and more emotionally ready for life's constant problems. Second, negative emotions can lead us into addiction. Key point number 3. We need to always work on getting rid of anger and other negative emotions, which are often hidden triggers. Lastly, we need to avoid circumstances which lead to negative emotions, if possible. Good planning and flexible planning can help you avoid circumstances which will trigger you. John Howard Prynne also wrote, quote, in time I learned that if my external motivation was strong enough, then my internal impulses could be curbed. Unquote. For some people, a great enough amount of pain or a change of thinking will cause them to change their behavior. If what you think about has changed, then your internal impulses can be controlled. This is key point number 4. You need to think about the benefits of quitting more often than you think about the experience of drug use. I'll repeat that. You need to think about the benefits of quitting more often than you think about the experience of drug use. Make a note to remind yourself to do this until it becomes a daily habit. Key point number 5. You need to think about the destruction drugs cause you more often than you think about the pleasure/pain relief it gives. I'll repeat that as well. You need to think more about the destruction drugs cause you than you think about the pleasure/pain relief that it gives. That's a good idea for a note as well. But we have to be brutally honest. We are as sick as our addictions are. If your drug use is causing harm to others, you need to immediately get outside help. The remainder of this video will contain information which is spiritual only in nature. Addiction tells us that something we can do, indulging in drugs, can compensate for what's missing inside of us. It is a lie. Religion will tell you to quit drugs, to control the fire that burns inside of you. But I will tell you that you need to increase the passion in your life. Your life needs to surge with more passion for something than it ever has before. You were created to have a dynamic, dramatic impact on this world. Most of you have never experienced the rush of knowing what God wants you to do. Solutions. Dedicate your life to Christianity. Study the Bible and pray, pray, pray. Pray about everything, but especially pray that God will take away your anger and any other negative emotions that may be a trigger for you. Obey the Bible down to every last word. Don't look at sin and don't even consider committing any sin. Pray always about finding your purpose and be determined to live in the glory of Jesus Christ. He will fill what is missing in your life, but you have to be intense about doing what He wants you to do. God wants you to find your purpose, and He wants you to spread the gospel. If you spend all of your free time in a dedicated way serving God, then you will have more passion and joy than you ever had before. Videos 1 and 2 have a lot of information on finding your purpose, and video number 2 has a lot of information on Christianity. And virtually all the videos have a lot of help on overcoming addiction. Try to watch one each day and keep watching them over and over until you form new habits. Thank you for watching.